Role Models is one of those comedies that slipped under the radar for me. I mean, I've watched it a couple times in the past years, but in the beginning, I definitely ignored it. It wasn't on my radar whatsoever. But I watched it again, and I've got to say, this movie is pretty funny even with Sean William Scott. I mean, he's the actor who plays Stifler in the American Pie movies, and for some reason, I don't really like the guy. He can't help it, but I don't really like him. But in this movie, he does his thing. He puts it down. I mean, he's actually really funny. And not only do we get Sean William Scott, we get Ken Jeong, we get Jane Lynch, and we get McLovin, the dude from Superbad, Ken Marino, and Paul Rudd. I mean, what more can I say? This is bound to be a train wreck in a good way. And all of these actors and actresses, they delivered. I mean, I think they probably shaped modern comedy in the last few years. And in this movie, they delivered once again. I mean, we get a movie that's raunchy, but also somewhat warm hearted, a little bit heartfelt for sure. And this movie talks about two man children. We get Danny, played by Paul Rudd, and we get Wheeler, played by Sean William Scott. And they screw up at work while they are promoting an awful energy drink to school kids. And after a run in with the law, they are sentenced to community service through the Sturdy Wings mentorship program. Well, you already know what is going to happen, right? Now, they are paired up with two problem kids, Ronnie and Augie. Ronnie is a foul-mouthed great schooler with an attitude, and Augie, he's a shy teen obsessed with LARPing, live action role playing. And what we get is chaos, profanity, and surprisingly, a very funny movie. Now, what works in this movie? Well, the humor, it actually really works. Now, writing a comedy it's not that easy, I think. I think it's probably one of the more difficult genres when you're making a movie because jokes rely on timing and wit and chemistry. And in this movie, they do it very well. Yes, it is filthy. It is crude, but it's also very cleverly written. Unlike most comedies that rely on lazy shock jokes, Role Models balances vulgarity with wit and timing. I mean, sure, it's juvenile, but what are you expecting from these guys? It works. So yes, it is funny. And then something surprised me, I would say, is that Paul Rudd and Scott actually have very good chemistry. Paul Rudd's sarcastic deadpan meets Sean William Scott's manic charm, and it works. It works very well. The two bounce off each other like classic comedy duos, and their chemistry anchors the whole story together in the chaos, and it keeps the movie somewhat grounded. And then, of course, we have two very interesting characters. We have Christopher Mintz-Plasse or Plus, I don't know really how to pronounce it, but it is the guy who plays McLovin in Superbad. And we get Bobby J. Thompson, and they both do an excellent job in portraying the kids that are being mentored by Paul Rudd and Sean William Scott. And McLovin, he leans into this nerdy LARPing world with full commitment. It's hilarious. And Bobby J, he is a foul-mouthed, sassy dude. It's shockingly funny, and for some reason, it's still endearing, I would even say. It is warm, it is somewhat heartfelt, and I would even say here and there it's somewhat emotional. Sure, yeah, I think it's somewhat emotional, this movie. And for all its profanity and its absurdity, there is a genuine emotional core about the mentorship, self worth, and finding joy in responsibility. That's what I think lifts this movie Role Models above the typical man child comedy. Now, is this movie perfect? Of course it isn't. We get a predictable plot. I mean, it's the standard redemption arc. You can see the story coming from miles away. You know what is going to happen. You know the story beat, you can see it coming from miles. I mean, the heart is real, but the structure, it is a formula. Nonetheless, it works. And the jokes, while funny, not all of the jokes land. For every great line, there's one that just sits there. There's one that doesn't really hit. The pacing dips here and there, and the humor goes for easy gags at times instead of sharp, witty jokes. But that's not really a big criticism for me. I think, if you make a comedy and you do 10 jokes and you can land 6 or 7 of the jokes, you're doing an excellent job. And this movie, for being a movie that, completely flew by me, I completely ignored it. I think it is somewhat of a, let's say, quote unquote, small movie. I think it's actually quite good for a comedy. I really do think it is hilarious. And here and there we get crude for the sake of it. Some of the vulgar humor feels a little bit forced. I mean, it's funny, but filthy without focus, maybe. And the third act turns a little bit too cute too quickly, softening what could have been a more satisfying punch in the end. So, my final verdict for this movie, a 7 out of 10. And when I'm thinking about it, maybe on a good day, yeah, for sure, maybe even an 8. It is really funny. Role Models isn't high art, it isn't a great movie, it's not a masterpiece, but it's surprisingly funny and, like I said, often it's heartfelt. Heartfelt comedy that hits more than it misses, and that's a good thing. Sure, it's immature, it's juvenile, it's crude, it's messy, and here and there, yes, it is over the top. But that is what you want from these guys. That's what is to be expected. The characters, the writing, and the chemistry, they definitely give it a real pulse. It's one of those movies that reminds you that even crude comedies can have a little bit of heart. And sometimes the best role models are the worst people. So, yes, this movie, I think if you like comedy movies, if you like even one or two of these actors, you should watch this movie. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. But then again, that's just my take on the movie. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.